Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. UncleClaude here, and it's time for the Steelers report. It's going to be should be a pretty quick live stream. I'm just going to go over the latest signings for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As you step into the room, make sure to hit the like button on the way in. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me. I know I went over some of the signings, but I'm going to go more in depth with this and see how they're going to work. Hopefully, with the new coach, Mike McCarthy, and his scheme, and the new regime as far as the defense and the offense. And I wish some of these moves were made actually before the offseason, but I digress. I mean, obviously, it's a new year, a new time, and we're about a month away, a little more than a month away from the NFL draft, which ironically will be held in Pittsburgh. And we do have a first rounder. It'll be a late first rounder. It'll be interesting to see if we decide to move up or down in the draft. We do have a plethora of draft picks. Hey, Cheryl Burnett, how are you this evening? Always a pleasure to see you. I tell you, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And they were pushing Kirk Cousins. If I'm telling you right now, if Kirk Cousins is a Pittsburgh Steeler, I'm not watching the game. I'm serious. I'll watch the highlights. I'll follow the team. I'm not watching Kirk Cousins. I would rather see Will Howard. You don't know any of the new ones? Well, I'm glad you're here because I do know some of them, and I can break them down a little bit at least to you. So, in fact, let me start off with the most important pick, which, in my opinion, we've been looking for a wide receiver 2 since Juju Smith-Schuster was a rookie, to be quite honest. That's the last time we really had a true number 2 receiver. I mean, let's face it, Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster were, I would say, a top 3 tandem in the NFL when they were together. Because remember, in Antonio Brown's final year as a Steeler, it was Juju Smith-Schuster who led the league. Who led the team in receptions. I don't know if he led the league in receptions, but he caught well over 100 passes for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that actually was part of the impetus as to why Antonio Brown was no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler, because he started really crying about the lack of passes that was coming his way. He sort of threw Juju Smith-Schuster under the bus, and he sort of talked his way out of Pittsburgh, as we all know. And away we go when it comes to that. Obviously, DK Metcalf was the number 1, and he was the clear number 1. Calvin Austin Jr. showed flashes. He was injured a lot. And he's more of a stretch the field type receiver. He's not really a number 2 type. He's more in the, I don't want to say Martavius Bryant. He probably has the same amount of speed. Well, Bryant actually had more speed, but Bryant also had a higher catch radius than Calvin Austin Jr. Now, Calvin Austin Jr. is a good kick returner, good punt returner, but as far as receiving goes, he's like a C-plus receiver when it comes to that. But the Steelers have rectified that with Michael Pittman Jr., formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. He was the clear number 1 or number 2 receiver with the Colts until the young man that's why he was made actually expendable, because the other receiver got so much better in his second year to where he made Michael Pittman Jr. expendable, and now he is a Pittsburgh Steeler. He'll be the clear number 2 receiver behind DK Metcalf, and at times he'll obviously be a number 1. He has a very high catch radius. He doesn't have the speed of DK Metcalf, but he's 6'3", 223 pounds. He can go get it. He's a great 50-50 ball receiver. He has very good hands. He definitely helped in the development of Daniel Jones this season. And as you saw, Daniel Jones got another big payday, which is amazing to me that someone would give him $100 million. I mean, he hit the lotto twice. He hit the lotto with the Giants, and he hit the lotto with the Indianapolis Colts. And Daniel Jones might not even play the first half of the season because of the injury that he had. But that's how much of a premium quarterback play is in. And that's why we didn't go after. And to me, we should have went after Malik Willis, but I understand why the Steelers didn't, because Miami paid him a king's ransom to become quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. I get it. And again, I was the one who first guessed this back in the day. I said I would rather have Malik Willis than Kenny Pickett. And as you can see, Kenny Pickett is barely hanging on in the NFL, and Malik Willis will be the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. But I digress. Michael Pittman Jr., welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He sounds like he can't wait to play for Mike McCarthy. It's very interesting to see how this is going to work out. And part of the reason why it's going to be interesting, it looks like the Steelers are going to give the controls to Will Howard, or at least he'll be in quarterback competition. Again, I do not want to see Kirk Cousins anywhere near the Pittsburgh Steelers facility. For that, I'd rather see Aaron Rodgers come back to Pittsburgh, and I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers anywhere near the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's just my opinion. We should just go Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, get whatever journeyman quarterback, and away we go. If we succeed, it's fine. If not, then we can get a top 5 pick. We can finally get a quarterback of the future, have Mr. McCarthy develop him as needed. And listen, if you want to tell me the Steelers should go after Anthony Richardson for a 6th-round pick, have at it. I think that would be a good idea. Richardson definitely has all the tools. I'd rather see him than Kirk Cousins. At least Anthony Richardson is what, 23, 24 years old? He has all the upside in the world. We know that. I mean, now, if you want to say, I don't want a guy who quit on his team, I cannot blame you on that. I definitely understand that, because Anthony Richardson definitely axed out of that game, and you can't have a guy under center who wants to beg out. Not that the most important position in pro football, you can't have a quitter. So if you want to say that, I have absolutely no problem with you when it comes to that. So that's a little synopsis on Michael Pittman Jr. I feel that he's going to catch at least 80 passes. He's going to have at least 6 to 8 touchdowns. He's a really, really good wide receiver. Really good. I just pray. The only thing is his health, which let's face it, it's an any given Sunday league injury. You know, the most important ability is availability. We all know that. And Michael Pittman has been very durable. And again, 6'3", 230. He's a tough wide receiver. He's one of those lunch pail receivers with a little bit of speed. So, you know what? I'm really looking forward to see him and DK Metcalf. They could be definitely a dynamic duo. And it's going to definitely help the development of Will Howard if he is the guy under center. Rico Dowdle, we got him at running back to take the place of Gainwell, who ended up going to the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I understand why he went. And to be quite honest, I do like the 1-2 punch. If you remember when the Green Bay Packers beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl, and that Super Bowl still haunts me, ladies and gentlemen, I better never see Rashad Mendenhall. I'm just saying. But I digress. They did have a running back by committee. If you remember, the Green Bay Packer leading running back that year was James Starks, but there were a plethora of running backs. Rico Dowdle coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with the Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers. He goes back into the McCarthy system where he flourished in Dallas. So that's good to know. And one of the reasons that he became a Pittsburgh Steeler is because he was familiar with Mike McCarthy and enjoyed his time in Dallas. And him and Jaylen Warren will face a 1-2. They are going to be a very formidable 1-2 punch. Jalen Warren does a lot of the things that Gainwell does very well. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's very shifty. He can run with some power and some speed. He's a good change of pace running back. Rico Dowdle is not that great a receiving running back, but he gives us something that we haven't had since Harris, and that is a guy who is not afraid to go between the tackles and can run behind his pads. He's a very tough running back. He's one of those guys in third and short. He's almost an automatic first down, and that definitely helps. And we have worked on the offensive line. The offensive line did play a lot better. Now, you wouldn't tell by the playoff performance, but of course, that's a different type of animal. The Houston Texan defense was the best in pro football. We saw it. We saw the way they pushed us around. And listen, they gave New England fits, to be quite honest with you, but unfortunately, they did not play well on the offensive side of the football, and that's why the New England Patriots ended up being the AFC representative in the Super Bowl, where they got outclassed thoroughly by the Seattle Seahawks, the eventual Super Bowl champions. So welcome to Pittsburgh, Rico Dowdle. Now, speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the mainstays of their secondary, Jamel Dean, is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's he's not a great corner, but he is a very good corner. He's very solid. I think he's going to complement Joey Porter Jr. very well. He's a sure tackler. He's a ball hawk, excuse me. If I were to compare him to anybody, if you remember Joe Hayden at the end of his career, he was still very good for the Steelers. He reminds you of him in a lot of ways. Now, he didn't have the upside of Joe Hayden, and his prime was much better than Dean. But Dean is a very good complement. Of course, he's a very solid number 2 corner. And this also tells me that they're going to have Jalen Ramsey play the big nickel, which is necessary. I like what the Steelers are doing on that side of the ball. We've been looking for secondary help for the longest. The Steelers secondary has been in shambles. Let's face it. I mean, we've had Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was an All-Pro. Joey Porter Jr. has definitely solidified himself, becoming an All-Pro caliber corner, something we haven't had since Ike Taylor in his prime. I tell you what, if Ike Taylor could have held on to some of those passes, man, he'd be a Steeler legend. As it is, he helped us win 2 Super Bowls and almost a third. So I don't think Ike Taylor gets he doesn't get what he deserves as great as a defensive player as he was for the Steelers. And I understand that he also gets a lot of flack because of the Tim Tebow game and Demaryius Thomas, but he was on the downside of his career by then. But Ike Taylor always was very solid for us at the corner position. He gave A.J. Brown fits in his prime. He was just a wonderful corner. He let us do a lot of things. He opened it up a lot for Troy, Ryan Clark, and friends. He was a very good corner for the Steelers. And I think Joey Porter Jr., he doesn't have the speed that Ike Taylor had. But he's got better hands, and he's more physical at the point of attack. So welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mr. Jamel Dean. Excuse me a second. Again, make sure to hit that like button. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, the other signing we had was Jaquan Brisker. Now, Brisker was a college teammate of Joey Porter Jr. at Penn State. He was a safety for the Chicago Bears. Kenneth Walker. He wasn't a Steeler, but okay, I digress. All right, 13 seconds. Kenneth Walker, that's Michigan State, but alrighty. I digress. Jaquan Brisker is one of those guys. He takes chances in the secondary. Sometimes he's out of position, but he definitely gives his all. I do think that he will learn more under this defensive regime. And I think playing with Joey Porter Jr. is a plus. Those guys know each other very well. And I'm pretty sure that he's going to school them on the way that we play here in Pittsburgh. I think that he will improve. Chicago, they had to take a lot of risks because let's face it, the pass rush was not great. We have a much better pass rush than Chicago has. So I do think that Kenneth Walker didn't win us a Super Bowl. Kenneth Walker was never a Steeler, but I digress. Kenneth Walker? Jeez, okay. But Jaquan Brisker, I think he will fit in with the Steelers very well. And he does at the very least, he gives us depth at the safety position, something we desperately need. Not sure if Duggar's going to come back, and we'll see what happens there. Sebastian Joseph Day is going to be the new nose tackle. If you know me, I always extol the virtues of Casey Hampton. Outside of Mean Joe Green, who played the 3 technique, we know that. The Steelers played a 4-3 defense, a totally different defense. Once Green retired, they went, yeah, let me get him out of here. Hey, TCOG, what's going on, man? Always a pleasure. You know I had to get rid of old dude talking about he needed a massage. You definitely are in the wrong place. Number 1, you're in the wrong place. Number 2, I'm the wrong dude. So I digress. I digress, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get back to breaking down the Steelers. The Steelers' new acquisitions. Sebastian Joseph Day is a very good nose tackle. Always a pleasure. I'm glad that you're doing well, sir. As I mentioned, Casey Hampton is one of those guys I always, hey, I'm doing fine. I woke up this morning. I'm doing great. Casey Hampton was the best, outside of Mean Joe Green, the best tackle the Steelers have ever had is Casey Hampton. Now, if you want to bring up Ernie Holmes, I get it, but he wasn't as consistent. When Casey Hampton was the head of the 3-4 defense, and you know this as well as I do, TCOG, the Steelers were always no less than a top 5 defense. From 2003 to 2000, I want to say 2011, Casey Hampton was that dude. You could not run in the middle. You had to go way outside. In fact, the 2 most important guys on the Steeler defensive line during that time were Casey Hampton and Aaron Smith. You know it as well as I do, and I know you know it. There was I think when Aaron Smith played, the Steeler record was like 700. Something crazy. Because Aaron Smith had a lot of injuries near the end of his career. But when Aaron Smith and Casey Hampton were both healthy, you could not run on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As you saw last year, teams were running up and down against the Steelers. Excuse me. You saw how bad they ran on us in the playoffs. Nick Chubb is finished, and he ran up and down. It was just ridiculous how bad our run defense was. Sebastian Joseph Day will, you know what? Number one, he'll move Keanu Benton to a defensive end where he can play the three technique. You know, they were almost impossible to run against. Unfortunately, our secondary was not the greatest, so there would be a lot of play action pass, which is what Tom Brady used to do to us and kill us. But I digress. And even those games were hard. If you remember, the Pittsburgh Steelers knocked out Tom Brady and lost to Drew Bledsoe in the AFC Championship the first time when Brady became the starter for the New England Patriots. You remember those days. Cordell Stewart failed miserably, and that was the end of Cordell Stewart as a Pittsburgh Steeler and as a quarterback in the NFL, really, because he went to the Baltimore Ravens, never really played, and was out of football. But here's Sebastian Joseph Day. Excuse me. He's there to plug up the middle. We're going to move Keanu Benton to one side, and Cameron Hayward, who we re-signed for 2 years, that's going to be a formidable three downs. Your three-down lineman. We know that he'll be taken out. Well, those are the two guys when it comes to reading defensives. But this was a young Tom Brady that happened to. And let's face it, Troy Brown's punt return also hurt us because Bledsoe did next to nothing. The Steeler defense did its job. But unfortunately, Bill Belichick did his job as well. Because if you remember, that was also the time where Jerome Bettis we murdered the Baltimore Ravens. Murdered them. We pretty much retired Shannon Sharp and those guys because we beat up on Baltimore badly. It looked like we were headed to the Super Bowl. It looked that good for us. But unfortunately, it was not to be, and we had to wait till Big Ben was in his second year in order to win the Super Bowl. Yeah, as far as our defense, and you're right, we will see when the season starts, because I don't want Aaron Rodgers under center. But I'll take him over Kirk Cousins. I don't want Kirk Cousins to clean the toilets at Pittsburgh. I don't want Kirk Cousins anywhere near us. If you're going to I would rather start fresh with Will Howard and have Mason Rudolph back him up and have a clown journeyman quarterback, and that's it. Or if you're going to tell me Anthony Richardson, get him in a sign and trade for a 6th-round draft pick, that's fine. Now, if you say I don't want Anthony Richardson because he quit on his team and I don't want a quitter on my team, I will not argue that fact because I don't want a quitter on my team either. I just think he's a young man who just felt the pressure and didn't know what to do. And I think he was sort of hung out to dry with this team, to be quite honest. Now, I can't back you when you quit. But I also think maybe a change of scenery would help him. And it can't hurt. You can't tell me we're rolling with a 6th-round pick and Will Howard. Unless you're telling me Will Howard is Tom Brady Jr., I can't roll with Will Howard. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm like you. I'm good with what makes the team better. I'm with you also. But making the team better not include Aaron Rodgers because he's a stopgap. He's going to be 43. It's not like he's going to play any better. If anything, he'll be worse. And he's going to give us the same half-ass effort that he always gives. And I don't want that. But Sebastian Joseph Day is going to plug up a huge hole for this defensive front. One that we really needed for the longest time. And it'll be interesting to see how he performs with the Steelers. Now, the other one that I want to touch on is Asante Samuel Jr., who gets re-signed. I understand that he's not a new acquisition, but he came so late in the season that he might as well be. Hi, C. Sam. How are you? Now, Asante Samuel Jr., when healthy, is a very good nickel, and he can play QB2 as well. He's one of those guys that you can move around. He can blitz, he can tackle, he can cover. He's a very versatile player. He definitely helps with the depth, and we haven't really had very good depth at corner. And I like that they've worked on that. I have to give Omar Khan a lot of credit. Now, I'm not going to give a grade yet because I want to see how we draft first. Yeah, that was the strength of the old Steelers because they made teams one-dimensional and we could tee off with our pass rush. And that's also going to be a plus in moving Keanu Benton to a 3 technique because he can rush the passer. And to move him on the other side and have him, Keanu Benton can beat one-on-ones, but he doesn't have the girth to stuff the holes in the middle. Whereas Casey Hampton was so big and he had such good lateral movement, it took 3 guys to move Casey Hampton. And it freed up guys like Clark Hagens, Jason Gilden, later on Joey Porter Jr., of course. Senior. I'm sorry, Joey Porter Sr. And Joey Porter Sr. was special. He was different. But man, he could rush the passer, and he was every bit as savage, if not more. In fact, he might have been like TJ Watt is a very good player, and he's a top 5 when it comes to our outside linebacker in the 3-4 position. I'm not counting him. Listen, he's not Jack Ham. That's a whole different ball game. And again, that's the Tampa 2-4-3 with Bud Carson. But Joey Porter Sr. was a maniacal player. He was one of those guys, you leave him alone until game time. Because he was one of those guys you didn't have to worry about him. Yes, he was one of the voices. Now, I have to disagree with you as being the voice of the Steelers. He was one of the voices of the Steelers. He was the emotional leader of the Steelers. But the voice of the Steelers was James Farrior. And you talk about a guy they've never replaced. And that's why Patrick Queen is on the trade block. Fellas World, how are you? Always good to see you. Always. Just one. Pleasure to see you. Bud Carson was a defensive genius. He kept the Rams in that Super Bowl, remember? Because that's part of the reason why the Super Bowl 14 was so close in the first half, because he knew all of our plays. Remember, of course, you know that he was the architect of the Steel Curtain, and he was the Rams defensive coordinator at that time. Yep, you're right. Double tap that screen, ladies and gentlemen. Double tap that screen. And I also remember that Super Bowl for a lot of reasons. I remember that Super Bowl because, number one, in fact, let me show myself. I know I'm wearing my Green Bay Packer jersey, but there's a reason for that. I'm wearing it because this is Sterling Sharp. And Sterling Sharp, until he got hurt, one of the newer Hall of Famers, it took him entirely too long for him to get into the Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the one thing I have to give Shannon Sharpe credit for. He even said that he was the second best receiver in his family, that Sterling Sharpe was the best. And Sterling Sharpe was the best wide receiver in pro football at the time where Jerry Rice was in his prime. Think about that for a second. Yeah, you know I'm not afraid to cam up, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if that's to my benefit or to my detriment. I know there are a couple of people who like when I cam up, but I digress. But getting back to Asante Samuel Jr., I love what the Steelers are doing as far as getting depth in the secondary. I like that we're fortifying our defensive line. I love the Michael Pittman Jr. Trade. That's a no-brainer to get a guy, and we're just swapping third-round picks. Come on, you can't hate that move. And we might get a player in the third round that could help our team, especially in the very near future, because this is a rebuild. Anybody who says it's not, even though it looks like they're retooling with these moves, which means there's going to be, listen, Omar Khan might have something up his sleeve. I'm just saying. Hey, the queen before you, how are you? Always a pleasure. And thank you so much for joining. I'm going to be honest, you knew, and let's face it, all Steeler fans knew that they weren't going to let, in a way, as much as I hated to see Mike Tomlin go, I'm glad. I have to give it to you, TCOG. You were 100% right that you were glad to see Tomlin go because they don't have him to beat up on anymore. And I don't think Mike Tomlin is going to coach ever again. I don't think he wants anything to do with coaching. I almost wish that he would come back to stick it to a team, a part of me wouldn't mind Mike Tomlin coming back to stick it to the Steelers and win 2 Super Bowls as long as we win a couple more afterwards. A part of me wouldn't mind that. What the hell? Are you okay? Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin was going to leave either way, to be quite honest with you. He was going to leave. I told you he was going to leave on his own terms. Yeah, that was a good coaching staff. Listen, George Perlis, who later became the head coach of the Michigan State Spartans, I remember him very well. Lionel Taylor, who, if I'm not mistaken, he was the wide receiver coach. Of course, with Swan and Stallworth. Listen, those teams, we were so privileged to see those teams. If you didn't get a chance to see the 70s Pittsburgh Steelers, then I feel so bad. I mean, the reason I'm a Steeler fan right now, Franco, Mean Joe, Lynn Swan, LC, those guys were awesome. Stallworth, of course. Even Randy, I like Randy, Rocky Blyer. You know, those guys, you can talk about the Hall of Famers all you want. And if you're talking about even though he wasn't part of the coaching staff, we can't leave out Bill Nunn Sr. Because if it were for Bill Nunn Sr. and the pipeline he had with the HBCUs, the Steelers aren't the Steelers. And you know that as well as I do. Oh, no, those guys. I'll give an example. Even though Lynn Swan only played 9 seasons, the hits Lynn Swan took, you saw what happened to Antonio Brown after he took the hit by Vontaze Burfict. Lynn Swan took those hits 3 times a season. How do you think we'll do? I think that we're going to be, if we start Will Howard, I'm not sure. I think that we'll be a 6-11 football team. I wouldn't mind us tanking. I hate to say that, but we need a top 5 pick. We haven't had one in forever. We need a franchise quarterback. I don't feel Will Howard is that guy. I don't think so. Bill Nunn was very special. Let me leave that there. It took entirely too long for Bill Nunn to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We all know his son also played Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing, and he was in about 7 dozen other movies and shows. Bill Nunn Jr. was a wonderful actor, and he also gave back to his community as well. But Bill Nunn Sr. was special. Remember, the entire front 4 of the Steel Curtain all came from HBCUs. They're not winning 9 to 10 games. Not with Will Howard at quarterback. With Will Howard at quarterback, I think we'll win. Especially Mike Tomlin was good for 3 to 4 games, pulled out of his bind. Mike McCarthy might give away 3 or 4 games. I could see the Steelers going 6-11, 5-12. I could see that. Unless you're going to tell me the defense, if Will Howard plays like Big Ben and hands the ball off and they do some play action, I don't trust Will Howard's arm strength because you have to have a strong arm to be a quarterback in Pittsburgh. Any Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback that has won a championship, and you know it as well as I do, had to have had a strong arm. Big Ben had a strong arm, you know that. And let's face it, we were hamstrung because Big Ben had lost his arm after he hurt his elbow. He was never the same quarterback. And plus, he lost his mobility. Once he lost his mobility and arm strength, the Pittsburgh Steelers were never the same. Oh, they'll be crying for him. And I hope Mike Tomlin laughs his behind off. He has every right to laugh his behind off with that football team. Because the Steeler fans were so fickle and so terrible. I wouldn't even call them Steeler fans. They were almost anti-fans. You can't be a Steeler fan and not root for the coach. Like one Tomlin guy, you didn't cry like that for Bill Cowher. All he kept hearing was how he won with Cowher's players. That's why I wanted him to win that second Lombardi. Because it would have differentiated him from Bill Cowher. Because Bill never won 2, and he was lucky to win. I mean, listen, I won't say lucky to win 1, but let's face it, how did he follow up his Super Bowl success? They went 8-8, and he flopped out the door. And in comes Mike Tomlin. Could you imagine if Mike Tomlin had flopped and went 6-10 after winning the Super Bowl? They'd have been crying for Mike Tomlin's head. They were crying for Mike Tomlin's head when he went to the AFC Championship game and got smoked by New England. Yeah, he went 8-8. I remember. And they were lucky to go 8-8. If they hadn't beat Cincinnati the final game of the season, they'd have lost. They'd have been 7-9. They underachieved so badly. It was terrible how bad the Steelers played. Oh man! And listen, I rooted for Coach Cowher. There were a couple of times where I wanted him gone, but I wasn't crying like fire Cowher the way these guys were crying about Tomlin. I mean, you know what's so funny? Bill Cowher went to the Super Bowl with Chuck Noll's players. I mean, he didn't draft anybody. Kevin Green was a free agent. If you want to say he was one of Cowher's players, that's fine. Greg Lloyd, drafted by Chuck Noll. We all know that Rod Woodson was drafted by Chuck Noll. Willie Williams, Chuck Noll. Neil O'Donnell, as bad as he was, Chuck Noll. All those guys were drafted by Chuck Noll. The main guys. And no one ever said, well, Bill Cowher went with Chuck Noll's guys. I never hear the Tampa Bay Buccaneers say that John Gruden won a Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's guys. Never. And they're not going to win with all these free agents and draft picks. Steelers aren't going to win anything. Mike McCarthy is not, and I don't want to hear that McCarthy and Mike Tomlin are the same coach. No, they're not. The one thing I will say, I think Mike McCarthy is a better offensive coach than Mike Tomlin is. That I'll give you. And if Mike McCarthy was the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would be ecstatic. But he's not. He's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you're as good as your last coaching stint. And how did Mike McCarthy look in Dallas when he had a real quarterback? Yep, and Tony still won a Super Bowl with the Colts. You're absolutely right. And I tell you what, at least the Indianapolis Colts fans aren't stupid enough to say, Tony Dungy won with Jim Moore's players. Because Tony Dungy, can we try at least? Why? Yeah, you saw what the old college try has done over the past, how many years? 16 now? I don't want to hear it. We deserve a tank fest. Let us get a 2-14 season. 2-15 season. Let's get one of those Las Vegas Raiders seasons. They're bad. Let's get one of those New York Giants seasons. Shoot, the Giants know how to lose. They couldn't even lose right and get the first pick in the draft, those winners. Oh, my God. That's what's so frustrating because we do have pieces in place. I think our roster, in my opinion, our roster, top to bottom, is better this season than last season. If Mike Tomlin had Michael Pittman Jr., Rico Dowdle, and those guys, I think they win. I'm just saying. Listen, I'm a Steeler fan. I want championships. I don't want, do you want to keep losing in the first round? How many times can we keep losing in the first round? Man, we're starting to look like the Cincinnati Bengals. Even the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. Damn. Now, if you're going to tell, and they'll never trade for Joe Burrow. Man, he's off limits to the Steelers. I don't want a first round exit every year. It's embarrassing. That's not the standard. We have 6 Lombardi trophies. That's the standard. The standard is Lynn Swann flying in the air, making an acrobatic catch to seal the deal in 2 of those 4 Super Bowls. That's the standard. The standard is Franco Harris running roughshod through the Oakland Raiders in Oakland to get to the Super Bowl and dismantle the Purple People Eaters. That's the standard. The standard is Terry Bradshaw taking the shot of all shots, hitting Lynn Swann with a perfect pass, the best pass he ever threw in his career, and the final pass of Super Bowl 10 that he threw. That's the standard. You want the standard? The standard is Big Ben's game-winning drive in Super Bowl 42, throwing a dot to Santonio Holmes. You want the standard? That's the standard. The standard is not getting beat by Tim Tebow. Now, if you wanted to tell me I'm firing Tomlin and everybody in the staff after that, I would have had no problem with that. No problem. Especially knowing what we know now. That was an embarrassment. If you want to say that was the beginning of the end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't have a problem. The only thing with that is we did go to the AFC Championship with the Killer Bees, but Le'Veon Bell got hurt and Antonio Brown went crazy. If you want to say that you want to cut bait after the Jacksonville loss at home in Pittsburgh and Big Ben threw the pick 6 to Miles Jack, which ultimately became the deciding factor in the game. Listen, as much as I remember those Steeler wins, I remember those Steeler defeats just as crushingly. You gonna keep hope alive? Hey, didn't keep hope alive just pass away? I would never throw in the terrible towel. I would just save it, just save it for another time. The terrible towel is still, it's still good. We're not going to do the TJ Hushmanzada to it. Listen, you're supposed to keep your terrible towel in. You keep it as long as you want. You keep it as long as you're alive. As long as you have breath in your lungs, you keep it. So I would never tell you not to do so. Real Steeler fans will never turn on the team. Now, I know Miss Cheryl Burnett was talking about I might look for a second team. I urge you don't do that, and I get it, because I sure as hell didn't want Mike McCarthy as head coach. I wanted a young coach, a Shula type. I didn't want Mike McCarthy. He's a retread coach. I didn't want him. I sure as hell didn't want no college coach. Now, if you were to tell me the Notre Dame coach is in play and he wants to be a Steeler head coach, please, the Neil O'Donnell game. But I'm going to tell you what, the Neil O'Donnell game doesn't hurt me as bad as I'm going to call it the Rashad Mendenhall Memorial. Because the Dallas team was better than the Steeler team. They had Troy Aikman. We had Neil O'Donnell. They had Emmitt Smith. We had Eric Pegram. They had Michael Irvin. I mean, we had Yancey Thigpen. Listen, let's be fair. Bill Cowher coached out of his mind to get that team into the Super Bowl. And remember, we didn't even have a healthy Rod Woodson for 99.9% of that season. In fact, he played week 2, he played week 1 and part of week 2, and he wasn't available until the Super Bowl. So let's be fair. I have to give Bill Cowher his credit along with his failures. Now, if you want to make a case, now Cordell Stewart, I believe, was a rookie that season. So he wasn't ready at that time to play quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we all know that Cordell Stewart was never really given the reins. But if Cordell Stewart came out in today's NFL, he's a top 5 pick, if not the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Because Cordell Stewart had a howitzer for an arm. And we know he was fast as all get out. Cordell Stewart was Michael Vick before Michael Vick. He just happened to be right-handed and play quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Vick was faster. If you want to say stronger arm, the Ravens. Well, they did under Joe Flacco. But if you're talking about the Jamal Lewises and those guys, I tell you what, you can make a case for Jamal Lewis being in the Hall of Fame. I could make a case for him. I could really make a case for Jamal Lewis. He was a dominating running back. A dominating running back. He was dominant when he played for the Ravens and won that Super Bowl. He ran for 2,000 yards. People forget if I'm not mistaken, didn't he run for 2,000 yards twice? He ran for the Cleveland Browns and for the Baltimore Ravens. I think he did twice. But he was a dominant running back. You know what's crazy? And I love Jerome Bettis. And I think Jerome Bettis in his prime was better than Jamal Lewis. But Jamal Lewis's prime, and he had a prime 4 or 5 years, but man, what did Jamal Lewis do off the field that kept him from the Hall of Fame? Now, I know that Sharper will never he'll never get there. Now, he might have kept his brother out too, because Jamie Sharper was a great player. Peter Boulware was a great player. How is Peter Boulware not on? Man, I tell you what, that Ravens defense, the early two, that's why the Steelers got tough in the mid to late 2000s because we had to match that team. That's why the Steeler Raven rivalry is unlike any other rivalry in pro football. Because that was the Raven Steeler rivalry was iron sharpens iron. And I think the Ravens are going to, I think they're on the decline. And I tell you what, I think Lamar Jackson, the best thing for him to do is to leave Baltimore. Lamar Jackson should go to the AFC West. He should. I think if I'm the Raiders, I would trade the number one pick for Lamar. I would do it. Because I don't trust this Ben. You trust this Mendoza kid? I don't. He might be one of those flop players. I don't trust him at all. I don't see where he's anything special. This kid has bust written all over him. I'm sorry. And I like the kid, but they're trying to make him out to be Cam Newton or somebody like that. He's not. This kid is now he's not Johnny Manziel bust. He's not Tim Couch bust, but he's not. He's less than Drew Bledsoe. I'll just say that. Because Drew Bledsoe was a good quarterback. He just didn't have the mobility. But Drew Bledsoe, if you're talking about rear back and throw the football, Drew Bledsoe could do that. And that's why he stayed in the NFL as long as he did. He's Vinny Testaverde bust. That's who he is, this kid. Like he's going to have a long career, but he's not going to be an all-pro. I don't think. I don't like this. I don't see it in this kid. I don't see it. He's a nice kid. Can he win a title? With the right pieces, anybody could. Listen, Vinny Testaverde one year outplayed John Elway, and they still lost. Okay, and that's because of Terrell Davis and the Jets. We were cheated out of a Jets Vikings Super Bowl in 1998. We were cheated out of that Super Bowl. But I digress. And real football fans know that. Gary Anderson, dopey kicker. He was a great kicker for the Steelers. How do you miss a 33-yard field goal? That's when you could tell games where old Cookie the Bookie and old Jimmy the Greek had some dealings there. You missed a 36-yard field goal indoors and missed it badly? Man, he got paid off somewhere. Can't tell me. And you can't tell me old Jerry Jones didn't give Neil O'Donnell any money under the table, allegedly. And all these things are alleged, by the way. Can't tell me. And then Randy Moss and Chris Carter dropping passes they don't drop. I mean, they sold out poor Randall Cunningham. Because we were supposed to see a Randall Cunningham Super Bowl. It was supposed to be Randall versus Vinny. I remember that game because Curtis Martin fumbled, Dave Meggett fumbled, and Keith Byers. Three guys who never fumbled for the New York Jets. And that is all. That and Terrell Davis were the reasons why the Denver Broncos went back-to-back in the Super Bowl. I remember that year. Yeah, you know what? That's the old OJ song. Money, 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 money. Don't let money change you. Yeah. Some people got to have it. Some people really need it. Don't get me started, man. But again, make sure to hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? Before I leave, I do believe in once a Steeler, always a Steeler. And he was only a Steeler for what? Bella's world. You know what? I believe next week or a week after, I'm going to do a members only live stream. And if you're not a member, make sure to make sure to become a member. I don't really push that very often because I'm not one of those guys. Yo, you need to be a member. You know what? If you want, I mean, we all have money. We all have certain things. What's this? Well, you're a little bit late with this in this live stream. You're gonna have to red ball it to go over the Steelers reports. I went over some of the newest players of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I went over the Michael Pittmans, how they're going to fit in with this new regime of Mike McCarthy's. So make sure to red ball it. Justin Fields was a Steeler for only one season. He was 4-2 as a starter. Later got replaced by Russell Wilson, as we know. And if you remember last season with the Jets, he was an out-and-out disaster. Justin Fields is one of those guys. He looks like a football player. He talks like a football player. He'll show flashes where he has the tools. He'll get your coach and your GM fired. Axe Chicago. Axe New York. Now, he's going to be the backup because the Chiefs traded their 6th-round draft pick to the Jets for the rights to Justin Fields, which lets you know the Jets are going to pick a quarterback, obviously in the draft, or they're going to make a play and trade their 1st-round pick for a quarterback. And I don't blame the Jets for doing so. If you're the Jets, if you want to trade for no-win Justin, I understand that because y'all haven't won jack since Joe Namath. You know, it's pretty sad when you're still showing Joe Namath highlights in 2026. But that's exactly what the New York Jets are doing. Well, they do have I understand what Tyrod Taylor's done for. Come on. Tyrod Taylor's my age almost. Okay, he's 37. I'm going a little overboard. But I tell you what, if I'm the Jets, I'd go after Lamar Jackson. I mean, I would definitely be box office in New York and New Jersey. The Jets haven't had any real buzz since the Aaron Rodgers debacle. Hopefully we get one. Well, I don't know who we're going to get. Yeah, the Jets have sucked for a long time. They have the longest streak. Joe Namath grew up an hour away. I think isn't he from Beaver Falls? Joe Namath? Broadway Joe. He was actually the best option quarterback that Alabama ever had until his knees got hurt. Joe Namath was a very good scrambler before his knees went on him. Remember Jamel Holloway for Oklahoma? He was like 5'10", but he could throw them. Yep, Beaver Falls. Yeah, that's the hotbed. I think Joe Montana's from there too. Like if I'm not mistaken, they're all like, it was him, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, they're all like in the same area. That would hurt too because Dan Marino was a huge Steeler fan and wanted to be a Steeler. But we went with nose tackle Gabe Rivera, and he got into the car accident, became paralyzed, was never the same. I remember that. And that was right after Terry Bradshaw retired. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Noel wanted him, but I think I forgot who the GM was because Chuck Noll didn't pick those guys. I forgot who the GM of the Steelers was at that time. Because I think Noel wanted him, if I'm not mistaken. And if we remember, we went to the AFC Championship game in '84, and we got obliterated by the Killer Bees of Miami. And Dan Marino, let's face it, Dan Marino sizzled. I mean, we had never seen anything like that type of offense. Now, they had no running game because if I remember, Woody Bennett ran for something like 800 yards. And he wasn't a great running back, but Marino had Clayton and Duper. Those guys were uncoverable. The steel curtain was a shell of itself. I remember our best player on defense was Donnie Shell and Mike Merriweather at the outside linebacker position. Jack Lambert missed most of the season with turf toe. That would be his final season. I tell you what, that was Chuck Noll's greatest coaching. You're right, Johnny Unitas played with the Steelers and got cut. So did Len Dawson, by the way. My Green Bay Packers, you know them. I told you, listen, oh, that's right, you came late. I'm wearing the jersey because I'm a Sterling Sharp fan. I'm not a Packers fan. I'm a Steeler fan. I am a fan of Sterling Sharp, however. I like Sterling more than his brother, Shannon. I'll say Shannon Sharp sounds like Foghorn Leg. Well, actually, Foghorn Leghorn sounds better than Shannon Sharp. I know Foghorn Leghorn isn't paying $50,000 a butt cheek to trick on a broad. I'm just saying. Yeah, Mike Ditka, another one. Oh, God. That's Chicago. No, I know you are. I remember you from before. I remember you. But I wear other jerseys as well because I'm a fan of the sport, but I'm a Steeler fan first. I missed my Lynn Swann jersey, but that's another story. I had a Lynn Swann 1978 Pro Bowl jersey. Oh, but I digress. But we'll see what happens with Justin Fields as a Kansas City Chief. I tell you what, nobody wanted Andy Reid gone. Yep, Darrelle Revis, yes, Pitt Panther. And Shady McCoy also. I tell you, the Pitt Panthers have had some great ones. Tony Dorsett, the great Larry Fitzgerald, of course, Dan Marino. Oh, Ty Law, yeah, the great Ty Law. Ty Law was, I tell you, he was a great corner. He gave people fits. And I tell you what, Darrelle Revis learned so much from Ty Law. That was a smart move, bringing him in as a mentor to Darrelle Revis. That was very smart. Those Rex Ryan teams were tough. I tell you what, Rex Ryan, he did a good job until it went to his head. And let's face it, the butt fumble was the end for Mark Sanchez. Man, Mark, you talk about a guy who went downhill quick. Mark Sanchez went downhill quick. I'm sorry. That's who this kid. Oh, you coached at El Quipa. Oh, okay. All right. Trust me, you know the area 20 times better than I could ever know it. So, but that's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. And let's welcome those guys to Pittsburgh. And listen, I'm one of those guys. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm bracing for the worst because I don't trust Mike McCarthy as far as I can throw him. And if you saw that fat bastard, you know I can't throw him. I'd like to thank TCOG, Bella's World, Cheryl Burnett, Just Us, all those in the clouds, all those in the bushes. UncleClaude signing out. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Take care. Stay safe. God bless. Go Steelers. And again, let's just hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.